Good morning, everyone. So we're live now, which is why I'm using this mic, because one of the things we like to do in the Edge in Education is to record these amazing presentations so that the rest of the parent community, in fact, anyone in the world, can go online and see what's happening at ISP and learn about learning and learn about what's happening next and what we think is important in education. So many of you have been here before. The Edge in Education and now has been going on probably for about 5 or 6 years, and it's always aligned to learning and what we are thinking about at ISP. And the model that we've undertaken is to bring experts, educational experts, into the school to work with our faculty, to work with our administrators, to help us get better at what we do. But hey, if they're here, shouldn't they also be talking to parents? And it's so important to us that parents know what we're doing at ISP and what we're thinking about. The focus today for Kath Murdoch and for us is on curiosity. And coincidentally, it's one of our strategies. In fact, we put it right up here. Curiosity drives what and how we learn. It's one of our strategies, meaning it's one of the areas we are aiming for across ISP, because we think it's such a fundamental aspect of learning, whether you're an adult or a child. So as I said, we're thrilled to have Kath Murdoch. She's written a number of books on inquiry. This is her latest one, The Power of Inquiry. And without further ado, I want to welcome Kath and enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Arnie. Yeah, I think I've got this one. Good morning, everyone. Hi, lovely to see you. And in fact, for some of you, it's lovely to see you again. Yes, who did I speak with a bit over a year ago, I think? So hopefully there's some new things to share with you. I did have a quick look at what I did last time. Last time we were talking a lot about inquiry as an approach to learning. And really today I'm taking a slice out of the inquiry pie, which is the disposition of curiosity, and looking at both how teachers help nurture it and how we as parents can help nurture it too. So it's just delightful to be back here again, and I need to say that I think I've worked with some of your children, those of you that have children in the primary school throughout the week, and what a beautiful community of learners you have here. And I don't say that to every school. I promise. They have just been so wonderful to work with. The teachers are doing a great job in creating a culture that allows someone like me to come in. The kids have been confident and thoughtful and so willing to take risks with their learning, and it's just been lovely for me to be part of that. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. It's working. It's working. Okay, so that's my curious little nephew right there. He's a little older than that now, but I think I would describe Monty as the poster boy for curiosity, actually, ever since he was born. So we're going to look at 3 questions over our time this morning. Why it's such a vital disposition. It's not something to be thought of lightly, even though we often talk about curiosity in a light way. We're coming to understand just how critical it is for effective learning. It's a session that I hope will help you think about how we as parents can use our everyday interactions with our children to continue to nurture what is a very natural human disposition. And I think it's important that we think about ourselves too as learners, and how we can continue to nurture and value our own curiosity. So that's where we're headed. So I'm going to try and activate your curiosity right from the start. In fact, it may already be activated simply by the fact that you are perhaps seated around a table with some people that you don't know, possibly. Am I correct? Or you're all sitting with your friends? No? And so you're eyeing each other off now, going, I don't know. So I have a challenge for you. If you, you are going to have the opportunity to ask each other some questions in a moment. And let's create some interesting, intriguing questions that might enable us to have a quick conversation with others at our table. Sessions like these are a little bit like a cooking show in that just in case it doesn't work, I always prepare one earlier. You know, here's what it should look like. So here's one I prepared earlier. These are just a few examples. So if I were sitting with you, I might ask, what's the best thing you find about living in Prague? Or what's your greatest challenge as a parent? Or this is one of my favourites, especially with an international community. If you could be anywhere in the world right now, I mean, obviously, here is the number one choice in this room with me, but just say that wasn't an option and you could be anywhere else in the world, where would you be? Who inspires you? These are just a few questions. They're kind of those dinner party questions, aren't they? Yeah. So I'm just going to give you a moment. You have at your tables some strips of paper. You have some markers. On your own, think what's the one question I would love to ask other parents in this room? What could you find out about them? Anything you like. I'm going to pause you there just for a moment. Thank you, everyone. If you were my students right now, I'd be saying something like, let's just take some time to think on our own. This is one of the, let's just be reflective and think on our own rather than have others do our thinking for us, which is code for be quiet. So I'm just going to give you a moment to jot down a question you would love to ask everyone in the room if you could. Can you identify at your table the person that is wearing the most blue? The most blue. Okay, so person wearing most blue, you have been identified. I'd love you to ask your question and each person at your table, just a quick response. Try not to embellish too much. All right, let's just try that one. I'm rather loath to stop you. There are some very beautiful conversations happening, but I do need to move on. Before I do though, if you haven't done this already, just quickly go around the table and read your question out. Everyone else, share your question that you might have asked if you'd had the chance. Just quickly share it with each other. Thank you. I take it as a sign of high engagement when not very many people put their hands up. When I do that, it's like I'm just ignoring that and going to keep talking. Questions, of course, are one of the manifestations of curiosity, aren't they? We're curious, and one of the ways that we show that curiosity is by forming a question. Not always, but they are often a sure sign that there is a hunger to find out. I think that we should collect these questions up at the end of the session and even perhaps display them somewhere. They're lovely, they're beautiful questions and intriguing questions, some of them. So if it's the manifestation of curiosity, let's just take a moment to think about what this thing called curiosity actually is. So many different discussions and definitions of it. I quite like this simple one. It's the drive that brings learners to knowledge. It's about being aware and open, checking things out, experimenting, interacting with one's surroundings or indeed with others. Being curious is an essential part of human consciousness, a joyful feature of a life well lived. Isn't that beautiful? And by the way, you will get, you'll obviously have the presentation online. I'm also will be sharing a PDF with the slides if you're, particularly those of you that might want to share some of these ideas with your partners at home that couldn't be here and so on. So you'll get a copy of these. When you look up the origin of the word curiosity, it's fascinating. It comes from the same origin as the word to care. Yeah? So it's about careful noticing, and even the same origin that becomes the word cure, fixing or resolving something. You know, our curiosity that needs to be resolved in some way. Inquiring eagerly. Are you curious? Would you describe yourself as someone that has a strong disposition of curiosity? Would other people see you that way? What makes you most curious? When do you find yourself that eager, wondering, curious person? And when do you find yourself not in the least bit curious? Why don't you take a moment to share your thinking with others at your table? What do you think? Are you curious? When not? It's a little cruel to interrupt such a rich conversation, I know. Something to continue to ponder. Part of a research project I did many years ago around curiosity was asking children questions about it. And one of the questions I asked children was whether they thought that grown-ups were curious. And you'd be interested to see some of their responses. So this, not really. They know most things, so they don't have to ask. Well, I think old people are. It's when you're middle-aged that you aren't curious. And then I said, that's interesting. What makes you say that? Well, when you're middle-aged, you're so busy working and running around that you don't have time. Yeah. Yesterday I was working with Year 2 children, and we were looking at the question, what do researchers do, and what are researchers like? What character traits do good researchers have? Our intention was to broaden the children's idea that research was what you do when you Google something or read a book, and also to broaden their idea that research was something that happened at school but didn't happen at home. So I shared with them a beautiful little clip of a 6-year-old who's determined to figure out whether fairies are real or not, and sets up an elaborate experiment in her back garden. Anyway, the kids said to me, oh, well, she's curious, definitely. And it got us talking about curiosity. And at one point, one of the children said, is she still little, or is that from a long time ago? Is she older now? And I said, actually, that's from quite a while ago. She's older now. Do you think she'd still be curious? And they went, no. No, when you get older, where is it? Oh, I thought I had it. When you get older, they said, you haven't got time. And then one of them said, oh, maybe on the weekends. So you could be curious on the weekend, but the rest of the time, forget it. No time. So it's really interesting. And there's a little bit of the out of the mouths of babes about this, isn't there? There's some truth in what they've got to say. A great mind owes much to curiosity. One of Einstein's famous quotes. In fact, he has many quotes around curiosity. Why is it so important? I'm assuming, I guess, that you're with me on that it is important. But why don't we take a moment just to question ourselves about that, where ISP has identified this as one of their driving principles, one of the things that they aspire all children to be. Why? Why nurture this disposition? I'm about to share some thoughts from the research about it. Before I do, though, why don't you tell each other what you think? Why do you think it's important? One of the character traits and special superhuman powers that teachers have is that they've got bionic hearing, basically. So I was listening in to many of your conversations. We eavesdrop and spy on learners all the time in the classroom, and just hearing some of the things you were saying, you've pretty much summed up the research about curiosity. So you've all got your PhDs right there. Curiosity actually helps, for want of a better word or a way of describing it, it helps learning stick. There's so many studies that have been done that identify the difference between students' long-term memory of something they've learned when what they've learned has been attached to a question that they asked or something they were interested in, as opposed to students that have simply been told without having that curiosity activated first. That just makes it makes sense to you just in an everyday way, I think. Susan Engel is one of the most significant researchers in this field, and she says simply this: when people are curious about something, they learn more and they learn it better. It's that simple. When you want to find out, when you want to know, you'll get it more. So for us as teachers, that means sometimes our job is to actually try and activate the curiosity when it may not be there. Other times we have that lovely opportunity to teach as a result of kids' natural curiosities. It's a bit of a two-way street. In an inquiry approach, which this school, certainly the work I've done with the elementary teachers has been very much around using inquiry, I think of curiosity as kind of the grease to the wheel of that learning. Without it, learning's dulled, it's mechanical. Curiosity helps you be passionate, it helps you sustain, persevere, it keeps your eyes and ears open to the unexpected, and that's sometimes where the real learning happens, yes? Some of the greatest discoveries in human history have happened partly as a result of people looking outside or beyond the obvious, of having that strong, curious disposition. And again, I'm just putting it really simply here, but it feels good. It feels good. It actually, so studies they've done around this is that when, it's not so much the curiosity, but it's the moment where your curiosity is satisfied. It's like, whoa, what's going on? Wow, that's it. That little moment where you get that little hit of dopamine, you are literally getting a little feel-good hit, which drives you to want to find out more. So our brains like it. We're physically wired, biologically wired to want to find out. And as I said before, we're more likely to recall and understand learning that's connected to our curiosity. This is important. Curiosity as a disposition feeds persistence, tenacity, risk-taking. It pushes you further. One of the things the children said yesterday about this little fairy scientist, as she's called, was that she didn't give up. She kept going. She even says at the end of this little video clip, if I find out that fairies aren't real, I'll be disappointed, but you get this sense that she's going to keep searching until she gets the final answer that she wants. It helps you manage setbacks. It sustains your desire to find out. You've all experienced that. If you're not curious, you're going to give up pretty quickly, right? But if you maintain, no, I really want to understand this. I really want to get it. I really want to solve it. I really want to answer that question. Really want to find out more. I want to solve this mystery. You're going to keep pushing through. If you've got no fire, keeping that desire burning, you tend to give up more easily. I want to share one of the things that your kids have, and I did try and embed these little videos and it just wasn't working, so forgive me. I'm just going to quickly find this clip of one of the children telling us about what she thinks curiosity is all about, and it's worth seeing. Take a moment though. How do those reasons that I've just shared with you accord with what you just said earlier when I asked you why is curiosity so important? Just take a moment so that you're not watching me try to find this video. I'm just going to check first. Do we have Aviv's parents in the room by any chance? Sorry? This little girl's parents aren't here, are they? No, okay, just they've missed their proud parent moment here, but perhaps if you know them, you can let them know. So I literally just, as the kids were leaving school yesterday, just asked a few kids about this, and this is what she said.
Being curious is good for you because then you can have more questions, and then when you have one question, you can get another one, and then another one after you research, and then because that's you can be curious all the time.
Yeah. How beautiful is that? She gets that, that persistence piece. When you're curious, you get a question, and then that question leads to another one, and then you're just curious all the time. And that's good for you. Isn't that beautiful? You've got your PhD too. You know? Yeah. Who needs to spend 6 years on it, really? You know, it's just common sense. Okay. So, and I'll share some of the other kids' thoughts with you a little later. So how do we this is such an important disposition. I'm going to argue that it's more important than it has ever been. The conversation, the worldwide conversation at the moment about the nature of truth, don't we need more than ever a generation of young people that are going to try and look behind, look underneath, look beyond, critique what they hear, what they read when they have a sea of information available to them 24/7. So there's that reason too, that when curiosity is not just kind of this delightful exploration, it's also about critique, yeah? Serious questioning. I want to figure more out about this. I want to look underneath it, look behind it, make sense of it, challenge it. That needs curiosity too. There's a whole lot to be curious about going on in the world right now. How do we continue to nurture this disposition in our kids? As teachers, as parents, you will see, as I share these ideas with you, a lot of examples from the elementary setting. I do most of my work in primary schools, but for those of you that are parents of older students, of teenagers, that's me too, by the way, and every single thing that I'm talking about relates to all age groups. It's just that the examples are more from the early years. What can we do? Well, we can, and this is something that so many international school children I work with have the benefit of. We can literally take them to the world, but the world doesn't mean necessarily going to other countries, but being out in the world, engaging with beauty, engaging with novelty, engaging with art. I was thinking about the last time I was really fascinated and curious about something, and it was, well, this is a while ago now, but this still comes to mind. It was my experience of going to the Chihuly Museum in Seattle. Has anyone been there? Isn't it just, were you?
From Seattle, yes. My kids have been there, we've been there. It's amazing.
I think I just walked around it like this.
You can spend an hour in that one.
Yeah. And then I just desperately needed to know how it was done. How was it done? And then had the beautiful happenstance of walking home and walking past a glass-making factory and then being able to see it. Truly extraordinary. And the whole family and everybody in that space. It's just extraordinary. There's huge installations that are all made of glass that you just think this is not possible. How is this thing even possible? It's extraordinary. I hope I've now nudged some of your curiosity. I'm going to look this guy up. No? So Chihuly glass, famous, very, just extraordinary. One of the things about that moment for me, and I guess this is the benefit that I have knowing the research, but I probably would have done it anyway, is that it gives me a chance to outwardly, Art Costa calls it, responding to the world with wonderment and awe. I'm going to talk to you a little later about how important we are as models to our kids of what it means to be curious. But what Art Costa talks about is actually nurturing this as a disposition, that it's not simply like you are curious or you're not. You can become more so. And you become more so when you position yourself to respond to the world with wonderment and awe, to look for what is, and how, this is such an overused word now, but the true use of the word awesome, as opposed to everything that now kids say, yep, here's your breakfast. Awesome, thanks, Mum. Well, it's not really that awesome, it's just toast. Anyway, even I find myself using it now. I'm thinking, no, Kath, save it for what is actually awesome. But looking at the world, what is awesome around us? This is something we want to continue to nurture in our kids. So one way we do that is by connecting them with experiences that activate that sense of wonder. The other thing we know is that curiosity is very much linked to exploration. So the opportunity to explore, and that's what we were doing in that museum, the opportunity to explore fuels curiosity, which fuels questions, which fuels more exploration. Just going to give you a little sample of what that looks like. Some of you may be able to relate directly to this in your lives right now. Others, it might take you back. I'm going to ask you when you actually got a chance to do this for yourself. You're just waiting for the adult to go in. Careful. Isn't that gorgeous? Absolutely beautiful. Exploration, of course, is what leads to, as I said before, it's the curiosity to explore, but exploration leads to curiosity. What was your response to that as you were watching it, both as a parent but also as an individual? When did you last get to be in that kind of space? Have a quick chat with each other. What connections are you making? The natural environment is a very obvious way to continue to nurture curiosity in our students. Schools are often the opposite, the polar opposite of that experience, but they don't need to be. And certainly in this school and the classrooms that I've been walking into over the week, this isn't one of them, but the classrooms I've walked into, you can see the teachers' efforts to create a habitat that invites exploration, a habitat in which curiosity can thrive. In the kindergarten, I walked into the studio that Nikki is running, and I wanted to explore. I was just like, let me at these materials. Teachers can create environments that invite exploration and discovery by their careful choice of materials and their giving kids time. Time's something we're going to come back to a little later. how else do we do this? So we create environments, we take kids out into the environment. We do it by employing the device of creating mystery and intrigue. One of the things that makes us curious is when we're puzzled by something, yeah? So it's the wonderment and awe piece, but it's also the I don't get it piece. Being deliberately putting kids in a space where they're deliberately confused or there's some tension or uncertainty can be really important for us. Again, it's a biological thing. It activates our desire to want to sort it out. The solution becomes a little reward for having journeyed through that period of uncertainty. I'm going to skip that one for the moment. So for teachers and parents, there are some tips to help us activate that sense of mystery, intrigue, uncertainty, puzzlement. One way is simply to avoid, and it's something we talked a little about last time for those of you that came to the talk, to avoid answering all questions too quickly. I'm not saying there's nothing more frustrating than continuing to not answer a question, but just noticing when sometimes your child is asking a question that they probably already have some theories about themselves, and to say, what a great question, that's interesting, what do you think? Just giving them time to do some figuring out for themselves, to allow the question to hang in the air for a bit. And it's certainly something as teachers here that I've been trying to model this week of valuing the questions and encouraging kids to sustain their curiosity by exploring possibilities themselves. We deliberately provoke curiosity by posing problems, pointing out contradictions when kids feel like, yep, I've got it. There's nothing better as a teacher than to say, oh, great, but what about this? You know, oh, hang on, maybe I haven't got it. Maybe, all right. So we deliberately unsettle so that we get this hunger to try and sort it out. We question assumptions, we provide alternative possibilities, and especially with the younger students, we place mystery and intrigue in their path. And we can do all of these things as parents as well. Let me show you some examples. Here's one. I shared this with the staff a couple of nights ago. So this was placing something in the path of the students. It's an image from the National Geographic website, a rich source of extraordinary photos, of course. And I used this with some 6-year-olds and simply asked them, what does this make you wonder? I'm going to ask the same of you when you look at this image. And the kids just walked into the classroom and it was just there. So they started looking at it, talking about it. What does it make you wonder? Want to share some of your questions? Let me hear some. What are you wondering?
Where are the kids' parents?
Yeah.
Well, taking the picture clearly.
There we are. Yeah, no, nothing to do with that tent in the background. No. So first question, where's mum and dad? Yeah.
Whether the child has grown up around those animals.
Yeah.
What is he dreaming about?
Ooh, well, that's a beautiful wonder.
I wonder where they are, like what country kids are sleeping on yaks.
Yeah. Yes, rather specific activity. Yes.
How comfortable they both feel.
Yeah. Is that comfortable? Yeah.
Is it a tame? So presumably it is a tame herd.
Yeah.
Is it owned by the family? Is it their particular
Yeah.
family? Or is it part of
Yeah.
Well, I have a question too that I don't like that it popped into my mind, but it did because of our questionable truths lately.
No, go for
Is
it.
it real? Is it Photoshop?
Yeah. Great question.
Is it trying to get you to think?
Yeah. Yep. Well, Interesting you should ask that, Hannah, because guess what the first question was that came from the 6-year-olds? Is this even real? First thing, it's like, that can't be real. That must be a painting. Great question. Isn't that wonderful though? That's exactly what you want. Similar wonderings. Same one you asked. This moment was beautiful. This was this little kid that she said, is that comfortable? And then just this boy said, oh yeah, it's really comfortable. I lie on my dog. So comfortable. And the other kids are going, yeah, I lie on my dog. Yeah, I lie on my dog. So is it a pet? Is it a wild? Why is she so tired? So this was in New Zealand, and so they were saying that does not look like Christchurch. That can't be here. And just simply sharing a rich image that provokes curiosity in itself is sometimes enough. It's not about necessarily finding the answers. We may want to, but certainly what I was doing with those children wasn't about right now we are going to find out. It was just, wow, yeah, it makes me wonder that too. Almost inviting curiosity for its own sake, sharing our wonderings, and then those children that might want to pursue them and find out more, that's great, but it doesn't necessarily need to be that. Placing things in their path. In the curiosity study that I did, I loved this quote. It's when teachers make you just have to know something. You so need to find it out because it doesn't make sense, or there's something missing, or you all have like different opinions about something. So this is exactly what we're talking. How do we do this? How do we A, provoke wonder, B, sometimes put uncertainty, dilemmas in their path so that they have that feeling. When students are curious about something, they seek an explanation. It motivates them to persevere when they want to learn what they need to be taught. That's the teacher's secret weapon. How do I get you to want to learn what I need to teach you? Well, we do it also by noticing moments where there is some puzzlement, when kids are trying to figure something out. This was also in New Zealand, actually, and this is a photo taken from the classroom looking across at another part of the school, and again these were young children, and one of them said, grade 1, I think it's grade 1's classroom, there's smoke coming out of the classroom. And instead of the teacher saying, no, that's not smoke, it's okay, the classroom's not on fire, she just said, that's interesting. What makes you say that? Let's talk about it. Anyway, long story short, this was also written about when room 5 was eating brain food. We saw room 1's roof was smoking. Room 5 was wondering why there was smoke on room 1's roof. We asked room 1 if there was a fire. Room 1 said no. We figured out it was the sun burning the water, and then the water turned into steam. Jake figured that out all by himself. Isn't that beautiful? So just these, there we go. Sometimes I find some steam on my roof. Right, so this is Josh writing about what happened with this moment in the classroom. Clever teacher. A clever teacher taking a moment of puzzlement, uncertainty, a bit of an alarm, and what are your theories? What do you think? How could we find out? Who thinks they might have some idea about this? Isn't that fascinating? Taking those everyday uncertainties and strengthening our curiosity through them. Teachers pose problems, pose challenges. We can do that with our own kids, right? How might you figure this out? I'm trying to remember it's something about getting water from one container to another and how they might go about that. This is again for me about not giving your kids too much help. Giving them help but not too much help. Can you figure this out for yourself? There's a beautiful face of curiosity. How am I going to do this? What might happen? both teachers and parents can do all sorts of things to invite kids to sustain their interest over time in things that puzzle them. This was one of my favourite, what we call provocations at a school I work in country Victoria, about 2 hours from where I live. The teachers, this is a case of activating curiosity about something that they have to learn, but making them want to learn it, right? So in our curriculum, there is, at about grade 4 level, there's an expectation that the children will learn about first contacts between European arrival and Indigenous people in Australia, and even pre-Cook arrival, and what the nature of those first contacts were like, and some of the conflicts that emerged, and then how those conflicts continue to influence how we are today. So big, heavy stuff, right? So long story short, these clever teachers have said, what's the main idea here? How do we activate curiosity about that? This idea of first contacts, the familiar meeting the unfamiliar, the moment where strangers meet. And there's a lot of case studies and literature about that in terms of Australian history. So what they did was they talked about what that's like in your everyday life when you encounter something that is strange, that is foreign to you. And they told their grade 5 children that they were going to provide them with breakfast the next day. Special treat. Special treat. Don't worry about having breakfast. We're going to have a special breakfast together. Yay, awesome. So the kids came in. This was breakfast. It's porridge and it's flavoured with blueberries. It's actually delicious. Doesn't look particularly delicious though. And for kids in country Victoria, it was like, what are you feeding me? So they said, there you go, there's breakfast. And perfect responses. So there were the criers. I don't eat this. My mum says I don't have to eat this. So there were those. There were the defiant, that's disgusting. I'm not even looking at it. No way. Those ones. And there were the ones that went, actually, it's quite yummy. I'm going to have. So then there was this fantastic question. Look at the different ways we've reacted to encountering the new, our first contact with something different. Why do we have these different reactions? Where have they come from? A little later in this journey of inquiry, as the kids start to read encounters of first contact, they connect that question with the experience that people had, whether it was fear, whether it was curiosity and courage, whatever it might have been that fueled the way different people manage those first contacts. But boy, did it get the kids' interest. It may not have been a pleasant provocation for some, but it worked, and the kids talked about it constantly. Putting things in their path that provide, that are puzzling, confronting, unusual, mysterious. This helps grow curiosity. I actually brought this in. I have not yet used it with children, but I thought this would be a great example of something puzzling to activate curiosity. This is an entire picture book with made-up language. So for those of you that have got, several languages under your belt that you're thinking, hang on a second. I can speak every what? It's completely made up. Iki rubada unkribble. Here. Isn't it great? So it's so great. Fullback. There'd be some pages that may activate conversations that you don't want to have, where the language might be close to an actual word in English. But a beautiful provocation that to me really does do the work of activating curiosity by providing something that really makes no sense initially. But then our curiosity and our meaning-making drive, our drive to have that hit of dopamine, that, oh, I can make meaning of this, is what will drive us through this text. Yeah? Beautiful. So it's one for your library, that one. What else makes a difference? What else drives or nurtures curiosity? So it's time to explore. It's exploring the world with wonderment and awe. It's being puzzled, being able to solve problems, encountering things that are mysterious, strange. It's also opportunities, being given opportunities to explore the things that are interesting to you. So it's almost a contradiction, isn't it? On the one hand, curiosity is fueled by the novel, by the things that we don't understand, but it is also fueled by having time to explore things that we are very familiar with and that we want to know more about. Does that make sense? It's both. So it's also both in the classroom, and I would say both in the home as well. Opportunities to encounter puzzling, mysterious things, but also opportunities to pursue the things that are really of interest and power to us. This was during a time that we call I time, and some of your kids are experiencing some opportunities to follow personal passions. It is a beautiful way to sustain curiosity in our students. What else? There's so many things you can do. So personal passions, approaching the world with wonderment and awe, encountering the novel and the new, time to explore. I think there's a huge relationship between time and curiosity. In fact, I heard some of you saying this before. You need time to figure things out, to experiment, to explore, trial and error, mistake making, really important factors in sustaining curiosity. Kids being given time to figure out what they could do with what started off as a pile of sticks and it ended up being the most glorious artwork. One of my favourite teachers at home who really knows how to sustain kids' curiosity by giving them time to explore. When you figure something out for yourself, there's a certain thrill in the figuring, yeah? Who has managed to put together something from IKEA all by themselves? It may have taken you an entire weekend, but you did it. You got that sense of satisfaction, yeah? Time to figure things out. There's a certain thrill in the figuring. After a few successful experiences, you might start to think that figuring out is actually something you can do. When you're told what to do, over and over again, you're told what to do, how to do it, it provides the foundation for a different set of feelings about yourself. If you never get chances, or you rarely get chances to figure things out for yourself, you might come to believe that you are the sort of person that can't figure things out, yeah? So giving our kids opportunities to figure things out for themselves and make mistakes and struggle a little is actually another way of nurturing curiosity. Might come back to that one. I did love this. This was when I was in Geneva last year, and in one of the open spaces in between classrooms, the teachers had left this huge sunflower pod full of seeds, and they simply had a question above it: how many seeds do you think there are? And that was it. And just left it there and had kids doing all sorts of figuring out. This was one of the options of figuring out. Someone had scanned it, taken a photo, and then tried to say, okay, if there's that many in that half, there'll be that, you know, I'll add them up, and all sorts of estimation work going on there. Giving the kids time to figure something out, being prompted by a very simple provocation. Oh, hello, you can figure out what that's supposed to say. I did that on purpose to activate your curiosity. See what I did there? Yeah. Slow, unstructured time. Everyone should be quiet near a little stream and listen. time. Less is more. We need permission to keep going, to keep trying to figure it out. We need spaces in our conversations. We need to be able to return and dig deeper and deeper. Time to be in flow. It's okay for your kids to be bored sometimes. I'm going to go further than that. It's important that they are bored sometimes. Yeah? We hear that I'm bored. One response to that could be, that's great. That's great. That means you're going to be able to stretch your imagination. Curiosity can be quickly killed by that sense of urgency, busyness, constant entertainment, filling time with experiences. It actually takes time away from the imagining, the observing, the reflecting, the inventing, the wondering. I may have even said this before when I was here last time, but I'm going to sound like one of those sort of parents right now, but anyway, I must say when I see kids in the back of a car on devices for a long journey, I think, when do they get to stare out the window and wonder? When is it that we give time to our kids now where they are not stimulated and actively engaged? I'm not saying, of course there are times where that's perfectly fine, but you know what I'm saying, yeah? That we need to deliberately allow kids to experience that I'm bored, and we need to do it too. I'm guilty of it too. One of the things, I'm sure you've all noticed it, you're all travellers, you know, you're at airports, you're waiting in a line to board the plane or whatever, and you look down the line and everyone is on their phone. You drive past a railway station, people standing on the platform, everyone is on their phone. And I'm old enough to remember when you didn't have the phone to pull out and go on when you're waiting. And what did we do? We stared off into the middle distance. Perhaps we noticed things around us, we wondered. Oh, that. Yeah, remember talking? But I'm just inviting you to consider boredom as a blessing for your children and not necessarily feeling like they need to be entertained. Curiosity will often be born out of boredom because you're trying to find something to wonder about, to fill your imagination. I'm nearly done here. One of the things that the research shows us above all else is the role of the adult in influencing the behaviour of the child. We know it about a whole lot of things. It's true of curiosity. When children see and hear the adults in their lives as models of curiosity, they are more likely to show those same dispositions. If they hear you wondering out loud, if they see you fascinated in something, they are seeing this is a way of being that has value. If we are fascinated by what they've got to say, curious about their questions. And that's me in there, I was deeply curious about this conversation because it was about zombies. I remember it well. I know nothing about zombies, but these children knew a lot. And so I was able to model what it means to be deeply curious about something. Share your wonderings. Be fascinated by what your kids have to say. Show your kids your own acts of curiosity. Say things like, wait a minute, I'm just looking at this. This is amazing. Right? Show them that. Say it out loud. Share your awe and wonderment. And if you have to fake it, fake it. And then you'll make it. I think Mark Church spoke to some of you about the power of language when he was here. Think about using phrases like, I wonder, what if, how might, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be interesting? Isn't that fascinating? Be aware of the language that you're using. Your kids will pick up on it, and they'll be also hearing you be the curious person you want them to be. I do need to finish up, so I'm just going to take a quick quick look here because there was something I really wanted to share with you. Here we are. I'm going to just share a couple of other things that the students here have said about curiosity. I think you probably know, and I certainly shared this last time, how important your kids' questions are. And I did have to share this, which is outside, I think, Kenny's music room. I had to photograph these yesterday. These great questions about Beethoven. Did he have a bad life? How many songs? Is he as famous as Mozart? Was he healed of being deaf? How did he die? When? Was he friends with Mozart? Isn't it great? And I thought this is a lovely example when we value, honour, share kids' questions. We're telling them your questions matter. Curiosity is something we value around here, a simple way of doing it. Let's just have a little listen to a couple of your other learners from your school and what they had to say about curiosity.
Well, like I asked my dad, then he said I don't really know, and then I went on the internet, and then I found my answer. He talked with that computer.
So you missed the moment where he says, I was wondering, how does Stephen Hawking talk? So, he shared this with us in the class yesterday. And there's this beautiful moment where he says, I asked my dad, and his dad did just such a great... His dad's not here, by the way, is he? No? Great job, Dad. Because you know what he said? I don't know. I actually don't know. Wouldn't that be interesting? I wonder how we could find out. And so I asked my dad, he didn't know, I kept going, and I found out. So I thought that was a beautiful example of a little moment of curiosity. And let's just listen to one more.
Are you a curious person?
Yes,
What
because
makes you say that?
because maybe when I see something new or when I see something interesting, I want to explore and learn more about it.
Can you think of the last time that you did something like that?
Maybe my friends were having a new game, so
Yeah.
I was curious to play it,
Yeah.
and I was really excited. And sometimes when you're curious, you're maybe excited and wondering about stuff what is it gonna be?
Yeah.
How am I gonna be? And these things.
Do you think adults are curious?
I think a lot because maybe with their jobs they're curious if they're gonna get a job or not.
Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? I love where he says, I'm curious about what the game's going to be like and what I'm going to be like, so this internal curiosity. I think that the role of the adults in the lives of children, both teachers and parents, I cannot impress upon you more how powerful that is in either sustaining or, I'm going to say, kind of killing off curiosity. And the last thing I really wanted to share with you was actually that question. It's kind of a downer as a way to finish, but bear with me as I flick through these because I overplanned. Here we are. What kills it? I suppose by looking at what grows it and nurtures it, we've kind of answered this question to a degree. But if curiosity killed the cat, what kills curiosity? Lack of time to explore. Limited choices. Tasks that are closed where there's only one answer. We haven't really spoken about this, but if you don't feel safe, you're not going to take a risk, you're not going to explore. That little boy running, there's a degree of safety there, isn't there? I think I'm okay. If you don't have opportunities to ask questions, or if the questions you ask aren't valued, you'll soon learn to not ask them. Lack of adult role models. If you don't see curious people around you. The lack of opportunity to actually have that urge to find out satisfied. If you ask lots of questions but you never actually get to find out the answers, that too can kill curiosity. And of course the lack of stimulus, sterile environments that don't make it hard for us to respond with wonderment and awe. Mind you, we want to balance that with overstimulating environments too. So there's some things to think about in terms of our own parenting and our teaching. I'm going to leave it on that downer as we all flail ourselves for doing all the wrong things, and just continue to do what you're doing to nurture that most important of dispositions in your children. And if you're curious about curiosity and want to continue to ask some questions, I'm happy to hang around and chat with you for a little longer before I go to grade 1 and get them curious about life in the olden days. Thank you.
So again, as Kath said, if you're curious, you could stay here. We know some of you need to leave, but we will continue with some question and answers and your curiosities. But before that, we have a tradition of Jay also sparking curiosity here at the end of the Edge of Education, and so she has a few things to say.
I loved that the very first thing we talked about, what we're curious about, people were like, parenting. I'm very curious about what other parents are doing with their kids and how they make this work and when I'm struggling with something. So this is a lovely opportunity for me to mention that the library really tries to have a lot of resources. So today I brought what were our most popular. What is it that parents are often curious about and come in and look at the library for some resources? So we have a variety of things from taking kids out and helping them experiment and interact with the world to what's it like to have a teenager, if anybody's worrying about that yet. Or what if you're actually working on an adult and trying to get them ready to be out on their own and doing their own thing. This is a brand new book that I think might speak to some, Freeing Your Child from Anxiety. We have a wide range of books up here, but these are some of the most popular books we've had recently. And if you have anything else you're curious about and you'd like more information, the library's happy to order books for you too that would support your needs. We also have some of Kath's books here today. So if you're interested really on more on what she's been talking about, these are written primarily for teachers, and we keep them as resources in the library. But there's often people here who would like to learn a little bit more about what she's teaching to the teachers and what they're teaching to the students. You're welcome to check any of these books out today before you leave. I can check them out to you, and you can enjoy them and tell me if you liked them. And we'll recommend them then on to other parents as well.
Okay, thank you, Jay. One last provocation. We have another Edge in Education coming up the day after break. So February 27th, and our great parent liaisons, Carmen and Rebecca, I was going to call you Bex, Rebecca and Carmen, who help us liaise and set up these Edge in Educations. They're here at the door. Thank them for all their work on the way out, and they'll also give you something to pique your interest about Garfield Ginny Newman, who really is working on us nurturing thinking, creative, collaborative, critical thinking with our students. So that is on February 28th. So those of you who now would like to have some more question and answers and be curious with Kath, let's migrate here to the center front and wish the rest of you a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.